Hi chaps. So I did 4 HOMET, or 4 ACO MET, 4 ACO MET, whatever, and 5 MAPB again the other day. It was a really interesting trip. I wanted to share my experience. So I did it with my girlfriend, and we intended to take about 15 mg of 4 ACO MET, and the point was not really to trip, to be honest. The point was kind of just to have fun, like just something fun to do at the weekend for New Year's Eve, and just to kind of enjoy ourselves. We weren't really intending to have like a trip, 15 mg is quite a low dose. Maybe what I have is fumarate or HCl, or there's some kind of difference, I don't know, and I've forgotten, like what it is. So the dosages are different, I don't know. So I did volumetric dosing because my scales are kind of crappy, so I weighed out like around 0.6 and split it into 4, and we had 1 each, so it should be about 15 mg, presumably no more than about 20. Anyway, we took this, and I thought it would be good to take that, wait 20 minutes or so, then take the 5 MAPB, because we didn't want to like sober up before New Year's Eve, so we were starting quite early. So we took this, we went to the shops, came back, and as we were coming up the stairs to get home, both started, to get that feeling you get when you start to trip quite hard, and you're sort of thinking, it hasn't been long, and I'm feeling a little bit funny. You're not tripping hard yet, but you feel it coming on, and we both were a bit like, oh, okay. And, and you start to get a bit like kind of scared, but you don't really want to say anything. And I was thinking, this is weird because we haven't taken much, and it's only been, we're only at the shops for about 21 minutes. So it was weird. And we were just kind of both walking around trying to act normal, and both clearly a bit uncomfortable. And then I started really needing a shit. I didn't want to go for one, but I thought I should just get it out of the way now and go for a shit. I started going for a shit, and I was reading random crap on my phone. Someone was sending me memes, and I was like so confused by them. And I started noticing in my peripheral vision around the phone, everything was like crazy. And again, I was trying to ignore it and just being like, this is normal. This just happens normally when you trip. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, this is like, I'm tripping pretty hard right now. Like, it's quite hard to focus, and it's hard to look at anything, and everything looks kind of crazy. And I was, normally, especially if you're more inclined to kind of enjoy these things, you kind of take in the visuals, but I found, because I wasn't really planning on tripping hard, and I wasn't really probably in the right psychological state for it, I was kind of trying to ignore the visuals, which is maybe counterproductive. But then I went back in to the room with her, and we were sitting there and both just not really knowing what to say, struggling to have conversation, and both agreeing that we were tripping pretty hard. And then I was thinking, I must have, the doses must be really screwed up, because how can we be tripping this hard? And I thought, is this just the beginning? Is this going to be really, really bad? Like, have I made some terrible miscalculation or something? Because it's really hard with these drugs with 4 HOMET and 4 ACO MET. Like, it's so small. It's pretty annoying. It's like really, really small. The doses you have are tiny, so it's very difficult to do. And yeah, so I thought there'd been some terrible miscalculation, and maybe it was about to, really kind of go off the deep end. And we went, I forgot to mention, when we got in, as soon as we got in, we took the other stuff, the 5 MAPB, but that takes quite a while, and I couldn't remember how long that takes to kick in, and I didn't really want to look it up. I just thought, all right, we've taken it, and we'll just wait and see what happens. And ordinarily the idea is the 5 MAPB or whatever euphoric drug you take, whether it's MDMA with acid or whatever, it kind of negates the possibility of a bad trip, So anyway, it was going on for a while. We were listening to the new Alex G album and stuff, and I was really enjoying it, but I started to have a lot of bad thoughts, just kind of bad trip thoughts. Not bad trip per se, but psychologically difficult, where you're kind of like thinking of a lot of buried memories and things you don't want to think about, and things you really dislike about yourself, and things you've done, and guilt and shame and bad memories, and just that kind of thing, and kind of a lot of psychological torment that you kind of go through while you're tripping. And I was staying fairly strong about it, and kind of just, I kind of knew it was happening. I wasn't losing touch with reality so much that I didn't know it was happening, but I did feel quite, it felt bad, but I kind of knew, okay, this just kind of happens when you trip, and you have to sort of deal with it, and just, yeah, it's just real life, basically. It's reality, you know, it's not delusion, so just get through it. And I had some of the crazy delusional thoughts that I sometimes have while I was tripping, but I had the wherewithal to say, like, no, that's not what's happening. You know, I've mentioned it in previous videos, I often think I was being, like, experimented on. And I had that feeling, but I was like, nah, it's not happening, that's stupid. But it kept coming back, and I was like, no. And, yeah, it went on for a while, and my girlfriend, Tara, she was clearly quite distressed, and I kept trying to lighten the mood and make jokes, you know, and I would kind of pace around a bit, and, you know, change the music, make some jokes, try and laugh about something, try and shift the atmosphere. But she was not, you know, she was quite deep in thought, basically. And I'd started to feel a little bit better. Couldn't feel the 5 MAPB, but felt better, definitely. Like, I'd kind of gone through all of these thoughts, and to some extent I'd said to myself, all right, that's just, you know, whatever, really. Like, I've thought about it, there's not much I can do about any of this stuff now, and I just have to try and, you know, have a good evening, and it's New Year's Eve, and I can't really, like, sit here thinking about this bad stuff all night. And I was then started thinking, it's been like an hour and a half since we took the 5 MAPB, and nothing's happening. And Tara usually doesn't have like very introspective trips, I would say. In the past, like, for me, it's been a bit of a problem, because she always viewed it differently to me, I guess, and she didn't often take much away of value from the experience. And, you know, I didn't always either, but she had very rarely had that experience of tripping and taking something of real value away from it. And then she just she'd been very quiet the whole night. And often I might think, oh, you know, we should both try and pick ourselves up. And, you know, like, I would maybe be a bit annoyed and think, you know, because I keep trying to make jokes and stuff. But I had just a feeling like she's just thinking about important stuff. And, like, you know, I can still try and lighten the mood. But if she's not into it, just, like, leave it or whatever, and leave her be, you know, and just, you know, I don't need to be, like, codependent about it, you know. I just enjoy the trip, or try. I wasn't really enjoying it, but try and get something out of it. And she just turned to me, she looked very intense, you know, and she was like, what do you think about when you're tripping? And I was, like, explaining vaguely, you know, like, I was just explaining vaguely the kind of stuff I was thinking about, and the sort of anxieties I always have, and those kinds of things. And then we were having a very, don't know how to explain it, we were having a super connected conversation, like staring each other in the eyes, like very kind of intensely, like really staring each other in the eyes. And we'd been, for the few days before this, we'd been having quite bad fights. And we were just really, really speaking to each other. I don't know how to explain it, just so direct. And she started telling me that she was having all these thoughts, and it seemed to me like it was kind of the first time this had happened to her on psychedelics. Like, and she was thinking a lot about some of her behavior, because basically, we've been having a difficult time. I don't know. Yeah, some of it's like, it's not personal, as in it's not weird or anything. It just feels weird for me to talk about someone else who's not here. But I'd say she would agree, like, you know, she had been being a bit, like, I don't know, some things she'd been doing a bit inappropriate, and, like, causing quite a lot of problems in our life, and we were trying to work on various projects together, and she was not really, like, helping, and there's a lot more to it than that. There's a lot more context, but, like, she'd not been great, basically, like, leading up to this, and part of it related to kind of ongoing issues we've had, and she just seemed, the main thing for me was a lot of it is, like, not very good for her. Like, it's not, sometimes the way she'd been living, I think, was causing a lot of stress and harm to both of us as a unit, and to me as an individual, and to her. And making her quite unhappy, basically. A lot of habits and tendencies and bad habits, basically, like, and sort of inaction in certain aspects of her life. And she just seemed so hyper aware of it, and like suddenly she was so kind of angry about it, and she was so just like profoundly sorry, I don't know, to me and to herself, and like just had so much clarity, like just it's hard to explain. Like I've never really seen her like it before, you know, and I've never really felt like it. I felt completely locked in, and it felt like we were just having such a real conversation. I don't know how to explain it. It was just so straightforward, because there's all these barriers in day-to-day life of like ego and stuff. Like if she tells me to do something sometimes, it just annoys me, you know, like if she's like, oh, you need to do this, or you're not doing this, or whatever, instead of thinking of it for what it is, you know, sometimes you just have these barriers up, these like egoic kind of barriers, and you react to things in the wrong way. I don't know how to explain it. You don't take things as they are, you know, and I think she was suffering from that quite a bit. It was all becoming a conflict between the two of us, and it's not really, you know, it wasn't a conflict. It was a straightforward thing of like, you know, there's certain things we need to do, and whatever, we should do them. And all that was removed, and we just had the most direct, really nice conversation, and it went on for ages. She was just talking a lot about her life, and in just super HD, and we're just staring at each other the whole time, and like figured out so much stuff. We sort of talked through so much really, really useful stuff with immense clarity. None of the kind of confusion you normally get from psychedelics. And this went on for ages, mostly her talking, and I was just listening. And I think she at the time thought she was being kind of crazy, but she wasn't. She was being super, like, she kept sort of thinking she was like ranting and stuff, but she wasn't. She was just being super like direct about her own life in a way that is normally hard to be for her, I guess. Staring at things head on and looking at them as they are and stuff, and like. And just felt so connected to one another. I don't know. And I'm being sort of vague and speaking in a lot of cliches and going on and on about the same thing. But basically, yeah, it was a really, really good, really valuable conversation. And this went on for a really long time, and we still couldn't feel the 5-MAPB. All we noted was that we both just felt better. We felt a lot better, but most of that seemed to be to do with the nature of the conversation that we were having. Was just very therapeutic for both of us. Neither of us felt a buzz. I think also because it was quite a serious conversation, you know, like quite emotional. We weren't like, woo, you know, New Year's Eve. We weren't like buzzing or anything. You don't feel like you're coming up. It was just because we were so focused. And to me now, I guess it's like, you know, in the past I would have just wanted to have a buzz, you know. But to me, I was thinking this is much better. Like, I would much rather have this any day of the week, like a valuable conversation that has a long-term impact on both our lives and is really useful and interesting. And yeah, so we didn't really. After this, we both felt good, and we felt a peace of mind that transcends how you feel physically from the drugs, right? Because normally you're kind of, if you're not in a very good place in life as well, like when we used to do these things before, when the serotogenic aspect starts to decrease, you kind of you start to feel bad, you feel anxious, and you feel like, oh, everything's wrong, and all the positivity felt is gone. But in this instance, there was quite a lot of that feeling, you know, feeling of like the drugs weren't working exactly, and we didn't feel like that physically euphoric, but didn't matter. None of it mattered. That was very much secondary to what was actually going on in our thoughts and in our life and in reality, not just in this kind of like base feeling of pleasure. And that was a really cool feeling, because I've always found it difficult to detach myself from how the drugs are making me feel. And, you know, when you feel really good from the drugs, you start chatting all this shit about life, and this is great, and that's great, and then you start to feel bad, and you start to feel bad about everything. And so this was like, kind of like the power of reality and human connection, and like your thoughts about life over just how you feel. on an innate level, how you feel physically, how you feel in your body and stuff, and both are important, but I think it's very important for your thoughts and your beliefs and everything to be able to take precedence over just how you feel physically, because there's kind of two versions of how you feel, right? Yeah. So that was really cool. And after that, we felt at a certain point, it's like, cool, we're done. Like, the conversation just felt over. It was like, wow, great. And we felt really good about everything. And we started planning stuff, and, then we just thought, all right, let's just get on with, like, New Year's Eve or whatever. And we had more 5-MAPB. We went out, we took the dog out for a piss because we knew there was going to be fireworks. We thought we'd get her out early. We came back, we sniffed more. We sniffed quite a bit of it. Didn't feel a great deal from it. Like, really didn't, I don't know, I wasn't enjoying it. To be honest, before we sniffed more, normally I'd be like desperate for more. Before we sniffed it, I was kind of thinking, I'm only really having this because it's here. This is just what's left, and it's like, we might as well finish it. I didn't really want it, and I wasn't enjoying the 5-MAPB a great deal. It was making me feel a bit swimmy, kind of, a bit just like, ugh, and kind of like I felt some of the physical symptoms of it. I didn't feel much euphoria from it. I wasn't like loving it. It wasn't super pleasurable. That notion still definitely has its hooks in me a little bit, because even as I'm talking about it now, I'm thinking, it would be nice to feel that, it is nice to feel that kind of pleasure. Like when I took those NeXTC pills I did a video about before, like it felt nice to feel like that, and you get that buzz and everything's just good, and you walking around and you just feel happy and you're just enjoying chatting shit. It is great. And like I do still kind of crave that feeling on some level, but it wasn't really giving us that, and I didn't really need that. And I felt like we might be pushing our luck a bit because we'd had a very good experience and whatever. So yeah, we sniffed more and nothing really happened. Then we were just lying down. We were like cuddling with the dog and shit. And I was literally, this was before midnight. The fireworks hadn't gone off yet. I was falling asleep. I was honestly like, I could have fallen asleep easily. And I've had this before on 5-MAPB. I had tea and stuff, to give me a bit of energy. I was falling asleep. It was crazy. And I could probably have gone to bed there and then, right after a line of it. It's weird stuff, man. So yeah, we sort of got up, woke ourselves up, but I didn't really feel up for anything. There wasn't much to talk about. We didn't really need to talk about anything, and I didn't have that energy to make conversation. So we just kind of hung out for the rest of the night. It was pretty fun. It wasn't like the most amazing thing ever. We sniffed the last of it and hung out until after New Year's Eve, stayed up for a while, and we didn't really do typical kind of drug related stuff. We ended up watching something like Can't Cook, Won't Cook with Ainsley, and Ainsley was in it. We weren't watching it with Ainsley, unfortunately, because there's two hosts of that and we only watched the ones with Ainsley. And just kind of chilling. We didn't really, I don't know, hard to explain. It didn't really feel like we're on drugs. So we both felt exactly the same way, that the trip was becoming quite overwhelming. And seemingly, as the 5-MAPB kicked in, at the right moment, it kind of brought the psychological part of the trip kind of to an end. It gave us a bit of breathing room. That was all it really did. Maybe it did that. Maybe it didn't. Maybe the trip just kind of wound down anyway and we processed our feelings appropriately, but we never felt the 5-MAPB. We just felt that the intensity and the heaviness of the trip just easing. That was all, really. I know that when you do things like candy flipping, the timing is very important. And perhaps the timing was wrong. I would say it was wrong. We did this in the past where we just sniffed the 5-MAPB and we sniffed the 4-HOMAT, and it was all, I don't know, it was good. It felt really nice. So I have no idea. Perhaps we're just a bit burned out from these substances in general, because when we did those NeXTC pills, people said it lasted a really long time, and it didn't. We felt a buzz for a pretty short time, and then it sort of wore off, and redosing didn't do much. So yeah, I guess sadly we're probably kind of done with those substances. Maybe not so sadly. And she had been previously reluctant to do stuff like shrooms because we had bad experiences with acid in the past, and she didn't have a great reaction to it. But I think she's now quite keen to like try other stuff like that. So I think we'll probably just do psychedelics, really, and maybe it's a good thing. There are various factors in our life that have deterred us from things like amphetamines and cocaine, and I think they're not really an option for us anymore. Very hard to explain, but yeah, they're just I don't think it'd be a good idea at the moment to do those. And now seemingly these kinds of drugs don't really work hugely well on us. So I think really psychs are kind of all that's left, like neither of us really want to smoke weed either, and that's probably a good thing. I think just low dose kind of easygoing like mushroom trips once in a while. That's all you need, really. Like a lot of the time when we're preparing for a weekend of doing stuff now, I mean, we don't really do things anymore, but whenever we like plan to do drugs or something, it just feels like a bit of effort, and it's like the whole weekend is gone, because the weekend is your free time where you can actually do shit. And when you do too many drugs, it's just gone. You don't have a weekend really, because you're not relaxing when you're doing drugs. It's fun, it's pleasurable, but you're not relaxing. Whereas otherwise, Saturday and Sunday, you can be a bit productive, get stuff done, play games, watch TV, eat food and relax and recharge and not feel knackered. So I think really just that and psychedelics is mostly going to be kind of, I don't know, I don't want to become like boring and kind of closed off to all of it. There'll still be a time and a place, I think, for slightly more interesting stuff, and especially there's always like weird new stuff coming out to try and new ways of taking things. I've been reading about NAC and MDMA and stuff. It sounds interesting. But yeah, I think just like little trips once in a while will probably be more beneficial, more valuable. I think we kind of had our fun with the other stuff, which is a little bit sad in a way, but in terms of our quality of life, it's probably a really good thing, because the other way you can go is just to keep taking more because you need to, and yeah, not worth it. Felt a little bit depressed today. As of filming this, it's Tuesday. We did it on Saturday. Monday we felt a little bit depressed at times, but we just powered through, and we were like super productive, as we had discussed previously. We just like really buzzing to get on with stuff and kind of just pushing through the depression that we felt. It wasn't as severe, but it was like a little bit, we felt a little bit kind of down. Today kind of feel fine. We've both been exercising quite a bit, so I think we feel all right, and I think the positivity between the two of us has kind of negated that again, which is cool, because that's not usually the case. Usually we're, as a unit, we were often quite beholden to how we felt chemically, and it's nice to see that we're kind of transcending that a little bit now. I don't know, it feels good. Just getting a lot done. Tomorrow will probably be the day where we'll feel the worst chemically, if that's had an impact. We took some 5-HTP, so maybe that's helped. A lot of vitamins and shit as well. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm really just now looking forward to not taking any drugs at the weekend and just having a weekend of just like getting stuff done and chilling and stuff. And then maybe a couple of weeks after that doing some mushrooms or something that's a bit more like easygoing and doesn't take up so much time and doesn't keep you up late. And I think, yeah, that's where I'm a bit more where I'm kind of headed with all this stuff now. But I still want to try different things once in a while, just for kind of purposes of exploration, because if we hadn't have done this, I'm really glad we did it, basically. Like, if we hadn't have done it, we wouldn't have had this experience. And if we'd done it in a slightly different way or whatever, it might not have been the same. And it seemed like it worked out really perfectly. And I think it was a really good experience. So I'm really grateful to have done it. And it goes to show, I guess, both sides of it, like one that on the one hand that you can do other things and you don't need to always like rely on drugs for, your weekends and stuff. And two, that drugs can also provide you with really interesting, unique experiences that you can't get without them, or that are very, very hard to get without them. So I think it kind of shows, both sides of that coin or whatever. And, has made me a lot more intrigued about psychedelics, really, in general. And yeah, keen to try some of these truffles. I don't know if you guys have tried any of these truffles, these psilocybin truffles. I'm kind of excited just to eat them. I know people say they don't taste nice, but don't know. Sounds alright, you know. I know they're not truffles. They're not like chocolate truffles. They're like, you know, truffles like you find in the woods. But sounds cool. I'm sure you could make something nice with them. Like, unless they taste really fucking rancid, I'm sure you could. I don't know, some sort of pasta or something. Who knows? Let me know if you've had any experiences with these. Anyway, I'm intrigued to try them. Yeah, cool. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Hope you're all doing well. And yeah, cheers.